Did you feel that there was pressure applied to you by the Post Office to provide evidence in Mrs Misra's case that conformed to the Post Office's expectations?
Yes, they clearly wanted me to say that everything was perfect.
Can you recall when you were first asked to provide assistance to the Post Office in relation to Mrs Misra's case?
I think it was as a consequence of this email. There may be, I think there may be a later one either on this chain or on a separate chain that actually passes me the report to have a look at, but it was certainly sometime in December 2009.
You tell us in your witness statement that you do not think that you received any kind of briefing or explanation about the background to Mrs Misra's case. Is that right?
At that stage, I don't believe I did.
And that you weren't, in fact, provided with Professor McLachen's first interim technical report?
I don't believe I've ever seen that.
Without a briefing or explanation about the background to Mrs Misra's case or the prosecution case against her, and without a copy of Professor McLachen's first interim report, how did that impact on your ability to respond to the Post Office's requests?
I saw the Post Office's request as being purely to comment on the second report that I was provided with, either at this time or shortly afterwards.
And so, again, performing a narrow function?
Yes, because that's what I thought I was being asked to do.
Did you ever think, hold on, I don't know anything about this case?
No, I was just being asked, please can you comment on this report? So I commented on the report in the way that I normally did by interspersing my comments within the electronic version of the report.
You also, in your witness statement, describe the Post Office's management of Mrs Misra's case. This is something you mentioned previously in your oral evidence as, quote, fairly chaotic.
Yes, I would agree with that.
What did you mean by your reference to the management by the Post Office of Mrs Misra's case as being fairly chaotic?
I think this came a bit more later. There were a number of cases where I would respond to an email and then get asked exactly the same question again by the same person, and therefore ended up sort of saying, well, I told you this yesterday, here's the answer I gave you when you asked me the question before. And there were a number of examples of that in the exchanges I had with Jarnail Singh.
Other than receiving repeated requests for the same thing, was there anything else that made their management of the case chaotic or fairly chaotic?
I wasn't being asked very clear questions. I was having to make all sorts of assumptions of what they wanted me to do. I did try and set out what I thought I was being asked to do, but it was very much a case of I definitely didn't have clear instructions as to please do exactly this, let alone formal instructions, as I now realise I should have had.
Did you realise at the time that you weren't receiving clear instructions?
I just thought that was the way things worked.
That's a slightly different point. Did you realise at the time that you were not receiving clear instructions?
No, because I didn't know that I should have been.
Irrespective of the formality of a letter of instruction, which you say you now realise that you ought to have received, did you at the time realise that the requests being made of you were unclear?
They were certainly unclear, and I did the best I could to interpret what I thought I was being asked. And sometimes I did actually seek clarification, say, I think what you mean is this, isn't it?
You also describe in your witness statement that, quote, at times I struggled to deal with the Post Office's demands. Is that because you were heavily involved in the rollout of Horizon Online?
Yes. I mean, there was clearly a scheduling problem I had, which I think I managed to fulfil, but yes.
Did you feel that there was pressure applied to you by the Post Office to provide evidence in Mrs Misra's case that conformed to the Post Office's expectations?
Yes, they clearly wanted me to say that everything was perfect, and I don't think I actually said that.
In what way did that pressure manifest itself?
I kept on getting emails. It was in spurts. It wasn't solid throughout the time, but I kept on being asked, please can I do this, please can I do that, and I'd get occasional phone calls as well.
Did you feel uncomfortable about the pressure that you were being placed, that was being placed upon you?
Uncomfortable. I just got on with things, which is what my normal reaction to try and handle things rather than worry about things.
So you felt uncomfortable but got on with it?
Yes.
Did you raise the fact that you felt uncomfortable with any of your managers?
Yes, for example, there was the discussion with David Jones at the beginning of February that we had, and that was part of my uncomfortableness, if you like. And there were occasions when I'd raised with my line manager, look, I'm being asked to do all this, but you want me to do all my day job stuff. How does this all tie together?
I was not thinking so much about the capacity issue, but rather we want evidence, the substance of the evidence. In your words, I think you said to say that the system was all okay, all right, and you felt uncomfortable about doing that.
Well, I think that was the reason why we got in touch with David Jones, for example, at the beginning of February.
Other than that, did you escalate it in any way within your organisation?
I can't remember properly. I think I think there may be some examples within the emails, but I can't remember off the top of my head exactly which ones they were.
Okay. Can we look, please, at FUJ 0012 2794? Now, by this time, this is February 2010, for context, you'd received by this time a request to produce a witness statement. And if we go down, please, to page 2. Thank you. We'll see an email from Jarnail Singh. In fact, it's from his secretary or PA on his behalf, of the 5th of February at 10 to 4 to Mr. Jones, and copied to you and Penny Thomas.
Yes.
The email body is addressed to you, Dear David and Penny. He says, on first glance, points 2 to 4 have not been answered, and I reproduce them below. And item 3, when Gareth completes his statement, as I've said already, by this time you've been asked to provide a witness statement.
Yeah.
When Gareth completes his statement, could he also mention whether there are any known problems with the Horizon system that Fujitsu are aware of? If none, could this be clarified in the statement? So this is an email from the Post Office to 3 of you in Fujitsu, correct?
Yes.
And you're getting the request directly here from the lawyer, the prosecution lawyer, Jarnail Singh?
Yes. Yeah.
Just looking at the request in number 3, would you agree that that's a broad request?
Yes, it is.
It does not ask whether there were known problems which affected Mrs Misra's branch at West Byfleet, does it?
No, not at that stage.
It doesn't ask you whether you personally know of problems within Horizon. It asks whether you can say whether Fujitsu knows of problems with Horizon, doesn't it?
Yes, and I responded to that saying, identifying a problem that I was aware of that would need to be checked out.
I'm going to come to your answers in a moment. I'm just looking at what the request means at the moment. I think you've agreed that it was broad. It's not limited to Mrs Misra's branch, and it's not limited to your own knowledge. It's Fujitsu's knowledge.
I see now that is what it said. I'm not sure that I would analysed it in that way at the time.
Why might you not have analysed it, or why put aside analysis of it? Why might you not have read it that way at the time?
I thought that all I could be really commenting on was what was happening in the particular branch when we actually had some data to look at for the specific branch.
That plainly doesn't say that, though, does it? It doesn't ask that.
I realise that now.